Hi, welcome to the 2025 season preview here on the Blue Abroad YouTube channel, coming to you live from Thailand. I'm currently in Koh Samui at a nice resort here, finishing up the last couple of weeks of my time here before coming back to Melbourne for yet another exciting season. And, you know, to be honest, after doing the training report with Chloe yesterday, I think that was the little spark inside that told me that it was time to start really talking about the season. I've really enjoyed the break. Last year was great. Last year was challenging. They were all challenging, but I definitely got to that point towards the end of the year. I think we all feel something similar where you have to get away. You have to find a way to disconnect in order to reconnect. And so that's kind of why I'm here as well. So came here, Muay Thai training camp, did one up in the north, and then moved here to Koh Samui and training here just for a bit of a change of environment, change of pace, change of scenery. And in my time away, I think particularly over the last few weeks, you would have noticed no videos on the channel, which has been the longest period without videos on the channel since the start of it all. And haven't really had an opportunity to do that in the years gone by. And I think it is so important to do that, just to bring it back to the need to disconnect. What I find with the club and the footy and the season is, you know, we're so obsessed with it. We can be so irrationally obsessed with something that is so beyond our control, but we love it for certain reasons, whether it's that feeling of belonging or that family connection, family time, going to the footy, watching it. But obviously for me, being in this line of work now, it's really important to get away from it. And there's always that point in time in, you know, December, January and early stages of February where I'm without it, and that period of being without it to the point where I miss it returns. And that's the point where I look within myself as to, you know, why am I doing this? What's the purpose of even supporting the club, let alone doing this channel? So I found that again. I had a little bit of FOMO not being at open training, not going to lie, but at the same time, it's really sparked my curiosity for the year ahead. Obviously, at this point in time, so many questions around the team and around the club that only really get answered at the end of the year. And, you know, we seem to go into this cycle of uncertainty. Well, to be honest, the whole thing is uncertain. None of it, I don't think, will ever be certain. I don't believe there will be a year where we go into it saying, yep, I know we're going to win the flag, and we win the flag. I don't even know if we'll ever see the flag, to be honest. I've definitely learnt over the years to just appreciate what we do have rather than what we don't have. Nothing in the game is guaranteed. Having said that, when it comes to expectations for the year ahead, you know, what does that mean? And that would change from person to person. You know, is it a certain number of wins? With nothing being guaranteed and not having the focus too much on the outcome, I mean, yes, that is a very important principle, but at the same time, if the team performs poorly and wins 8 games for the year, I think most, if not all of us, would look at that as like a bitterly disappointing year, you know, irrespective of the context of why that would happen. So I look at the team right now, and I've said this since the start of 2024, really. I think this next, 3 to 5 years window is a window in which the team is capable of going all the way. Having said that, I think there's legitimately 5 or 6 teams that would say the same thing. Maybe more teams would feel the same way. So how do you set your expectations in a way that you can still enjoy the season, you can still enjoy the team? Is there a way to manage expectation? Is that the job of the fans to manage their expectations? Maybe not. I think ultimately I want to enjoy the year. I don't want to have those just shitty games. I recall the Hawthorn game last year. I think this club is so beyond that, even though that can happen to any team. But just those embarrassing defeats. And there's something else that's come up to me over the last few weeks in particular, and that's to do with, you know, the disappointment and the generation that we live in who has felt this disappointment for so long. For a lot of the older supporters, say the ones born in the 80s and earlier, Carlton existed, and its image and its reputation was one that just won. It just always won. That's all we knew. Carlton was great. We just knew after half time, no matter what, you just knew they were going to win. And I think there's maybe a generational lesson that's being taught at this point, that winning and success and fulfillment doesn't just happen. You have to earn it, and it has to be done the hard way. And I've definitely learned as the years have gone on to appreciate the struggle, because one day that fulfillment might come. And as hard as the journey is to get there, the harder it is, the more fulfilling it will feel. I only know that in other realms of life. I don't know that principle in terms of footy, but I mean, look at the Brisbane Lions, who just won a premiership last season. I mean, they were constantly thereabouts in the top 4, putting themselves in the best position possible to give themselves the best chance. And that's ultimately what I think my expectations are for this year as well. Can we put ourselves in the best spot to have a crack at it? Can we make top 4, give ourselves the best chance? Can we make a preliminary final? They say that the prelim is the hardest one to win. I don't know what that means, because I haven't been there. I haven't experienced it. I've only watched other teams get there. But I do believe this team is capable of finding itself, particularly in that top 4 conversation, and definitely being one of the 4 best teams to battle it out for a spot in the grand final and, you know, hopefully win one. So that's where my expectations are right now. I think if we were not to make top 4 on the ladder, I wouldn't be as disappointed, but I really do believe we're good enough to get there. And while we are good enough to get there, that's where the expectation lies. So that's where it sits for me. Very curious to see where that sits for you. Are you a number of wins type of expectation? Are you just get to the prelim, get to the granny type expectation? I'd be very curious to open up your thoughts about that in the chat below. What else comes to mind with the club? I mean, the only bits of information so far that are relevant, I mean, we've had, I don't even know if you'd call it a scandal. We had a little mishap, which I thought was managed well. And now that we're on the other side of it, or seemingly on the other side of it, it's given me a chance to, you know, just briefly recollect what happened. And, you know, there's that principle of you know how far you've come in times of hardship. And not that that was too much of a hardship, but it was a story which had the potential to become a bit of a crisis, be on the front page every day and draw so much attention. Thankfully, it didn't happen during the season, because I think it might have been magnified a bit more. But I think the way in which the club swiftly moved to make decisions and then appoint Mr. Priestley as the president, and now we can move on with it. And I just think that was a positive overall in the way it was handled. Like, not ideal. How much of what happened was in everyone's control and out of everyone's control is another question. But the fact is, it's done. We've moved on, and we haven't allowed it to linger, which I think is a tick. Now we just allow the boys in the team on the field to do their thing and let that be the story for the year. There's so many storylines for this team. There's so many storylines for individuals. So many individuals, when I looked at it again, who were unavailable last year through injury or through whatever else. I mean, off the top of my head, at this point last year, we had lost, you know, Jack Silvani. Opening round was approaching. We lost Sam Doherty in the first half. And those were 2 very important players, and not to say 1 or 2 players are more important than others, but there are certain personalities I find and certain characters I find who really catered to our identity, and I think Sam Doherty and Jack Silvani are 2 of those players. Doc, given the resilience and given the storyline and given, let's be honest, like, he could have not been with us on a number of occasions, you know, given his health battles. So there's that, and there's that emotional connection that brings that up. And then there's Jack Silvani, who is obviously a 3rd generation player, Whether you buy into that or not is up to you. I definitely do buy into that. There are certain players which invoke something in the crowd. I think Jack Silvani is one of them. And when you miss him and Doc in the same year, yeah, you feel it. So we get these two players back into the team who are, well, Doc for sure I think is in the best version of this team. It's been interesting to see the rhetoric around Doc. He seems to be almost forgotten about in people's calculations, but I think he's right up there. And Jack Silvani as well, I think his move to defence, what's that going to be like? Is that something we can rely on? At this point in time, it's just an idea, I think, and what it eventuates to be will be, and that's obviously going to be interesting given Brodie Kemp's gone forward as well. So those are two storylines that come to mind. I think the other one for me is the forward line. If I take one step back, I'm not too worried about the back line. Maybe, the second to Jacob Wiedering, maybe that's a question for the year. Is that Jack Silvani? Is that Nick Haynes? Is that Mitch McGovern? But the fact that I've just reeled off three names there tells me that there's something there. I'm not so worried about the back line. The midfield, I think, is pretty solid. We've got one of, if not the best midfielders in the comp. I still think Sam Walsh is up there. I think the return of Adam Chera and hopefully having his body right. And then, the injection of some fresh elite talent from the under-18s in Jagger Smith, plus, the emergence of someone like Cooper Lord and these types. I'm not so worried about the midfield, if I'm honest. It's that forward line, which in a really weird way, on paper, you look at it and you can say, oh, well, we've got two of the best key forwards in the competition in Harry and Charlie, but that forward line hasn't really clicked. That forward line hasn't really gotten to the point where opposition clubs are so fearful of it. And on paper, I think it should be. Now, when you add Brodie Kemp into the mix, when you add Zach Williams now with a full pre-season in that forward line into the mix, when you add another layer of Elijah Hollins, when you add the return of Matty Cottrell on that half-forward line, and hopefully the return to form of guys like Jesse Motlop and hopefully Corey Durden and Lockie Fogarty, who missed time as well. It has all the pieces. It just hasn't done the thing. It hasn't done the clicking. So for me, it's still the same issue. Can we get this forward line to hum? Can we become a lethal, efficient, potent forward line? Because if we can, I think the rest of the field is set. And so with that, as I talk about it, I get excited because it's all there in my mind. But maybe that's just because I'm a Carlton fan and I have the Carlton bias. But that's another storyline for me. There's always the question of what if, and that can be a positive, that can be a negative. I'm curious to see what happens when there will be the undoubted challenges that come throughout the year. How do we continue to act as a club, as a team, as a coaching staff, as a fan base to the challenges that are coming? Whatever those challenges are, whether they are on the field or off the field, every club has them. Every team has a bad handful of games, maybe two. Look, the best teams have a couple of games where they're just poor. Brisbane were down 40 odd points only a few games prior to winning the flag, down by 46, up by 46 points against us and lost. So every team will have them. I'm very curious to see how our club and our fan base matures this year and what we show in terms of what we've learned over the last 5 to 10 years. I'm always curious to see how much of the passion bubbles. You can't have the passionate Carlton fan base as your point of difference without both ends, because that's the way the pendulum of life swings. It'd be great if we were always just passionately positive all the time, but the reality is passion comes on both ends of the scale. So I'm curious to see if we're able to strike a better balance with that, not to take away from our positive passion, but maybe add some perspective, and hopefully there's just that added layer of trust, because I feel like 2023, specifically the way that year ended, I think the team and the club earned some trust. 2024, I think the trust was, for the most part, added to, and then towards the end it was kind of like, wait, I can still trust you guys, but you were injured, but I don't want to make excuses. And so now we get into 2025, and I think so long as there is an element of trust between the fan base and the club, that the right people are in the right roles doing the right things to give ourselves the best chance, I think things will be good. I think things will be okay. But I am curious to see how that plays out. As I said earlier in the video, I think for me, I always look for ways to enjoy this. Because if I'm not enjoying it, if it's not bringing me happiness, if it's a burden, if it's ever becoming a burden on my life, then I don't think it's the right mind frame to be doing this. So for me, in order to find that joy, I'm going to embrace the pain of what it's going to take to hopefully win the premiership. And the premiership is less about the premiership. I think it's more about the memories that it will create for all of us, for our families, for our long-time friends who we've gone to the footy with, talked about burning our memberships after round one with. It's more that I think I'm chasing, even though I can't control the outcome of what happens, but it's just that want for those memories with my loved ones and with all of you as well. We've grown together on this journey with this channel as well. We've met so many people, so many opportunities and professionals have been sort of created and cultivated through the people that have come and gone through this channel. And so just to add more layers of experience with all of you and those who are going to continue to be here and those who are going to emerge from here, that's exciting. And I think what to expect from the channel. To be honest, I get asked a lot, like, what are you going to do differently this year? What have you got in store? In my mind, this is about decades of consistent performance and consistently showing up decade after decade. It's not about creating the greatest idea that becomes so grand. It's more about, can you be consistent over a long period of time? So more of the same. Obviously, there's an added layer to this year given we have a membership now. So again, thanks to those who have signed up already for the membership. Just an update, I'll be back in Australia on the 20th of February. The key rings have arrived with your membership numbers engraved on the back of them. So as soon as I get home, I will be posting out your membership packs. They should arrive in March, hopefully before round one, but given you just never know the nature of Australia Post, definitely in March, you'll get your membership packs delivered to you. You will obviously, those of you who are members, you have free entry to every giveaway. We're going to do one as soon as I get home. Details about the prize will be given to you shortly. So, and also just with the members, it gives me, I guess, an added layer of responsibility now because, you guys are paying members. So, you have a priority of my attention. Now, if you are not a member, and there are some of you who have expressed to me that you can't afford it, that's totally fine. Just to reiterate, you do not get penalized any more or less when it comes to the content. The only thing you're going to be missing out on is obviously the free entry to the giveaways, the key ring, and the discount code for the shop. But in terms of the content, it's going to be available to everyone. Members will see certain videos before everyone else, but apart from that, you won't miss out on too much. Obviously, the membership is more of a means to support the channel and allow things to evolve and allow me to reinvest into the channel, allow me to take some time away and get myself fit and fresh for the year ahead, because I think for me, in order to present the best version of me, I need to get away. I need to train. For me, training physically, and I'm training Muay Thai at the moment, for me, it gives me such mental clarity. It gives me such a clearer head, and it allows me to, get into the season, because it's emotionally exhausting covering the Carlton Football Club. I talk to so many of you. I have so many different touch points with so many of you, particularly after games. I'm talking about, like, that can be an emotionally exhausting experience, particularly when things don't go our way, to carry that constant feeling of emotion, which I also feel as well after a bad loss, is challenging, but I love it. Don't get me wrong. It's something I love. And in order for me to continue to do that at the best level, this is what I need to do. So again, thank you to those who are members. And I'm ready. I've got about 10 days left here, but I'm ready. I'm ready to get home, ready to get stuck into it. And so, yeah, this is the first real reflection on what's to come. Let's chat in the comments. Where is your head at with the Carlton Football Club as it stands right now? Where has it come from since the end of season 2024? What's on your mind going into season 2025? We've got about a month to go until round 1. We've got about 2 weeks to go until practice matches begin. And so I'm really curious to get a bit of a pulse check into your mind going into 2025. I can't wait to get stuck into this year with you all. Chat to you in the comments. Go Blues.